Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. By way of introduction, I would like to say that German is not my mother tongue, so I would like to ask you for your indulgence. Ever since antiquity, there have been idioms warning against the hazards of going against the tide. In the Bible, Sirach 4:26 says, "Don't be ashamed to confess your sins and don't force the flow of a river." The warning to not go against the tide is a call to the unconditional obedience and serves the preservation of power of reigning forces and basically nips each challenging question already in the bud. Esteemed colleagues, this is exactly the opposite of what the press should do. Democracies need responsible, informed citizens, well and accurately informed citizens with their own opinions. And this is why the press is needed more than ever in this day and age. I'm quite flabbergasted when I see how uncritically we deal with the accusation that we all merely constitute mainstream media. Our professional pride should actually jolt us from complacency and prompt us to react more sharply. No, we are not mainstream. We inform, we challenge, we analyze, we comment as we deem fit. We praise where praise is appropriate, and we criticize where criticism is needed, free from any influence, irrespective of the power relations. This is something that should be said loud and clear. You have to have the courage to go against the tide. This will be the leitmotif of my presentation, but first of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this wonderful event in which we all can take part. And by the organizers, I mean the European Newspaper Congress, the Oberauer Publishing House, and the organizer of the European Newspaper Award, Mr. Küpper. My thanks also goes to the entire team and also to the interpreting team that have left no stone unturned to make this event a walloping success. You have to be courageous enough to go against the tide. Take one. This is why there will be no PowerPoint presentation in the first place. People who know what they are talking about don't need PowerPoint. This is something that Steve Jobs said. And as I was invited to say something, I would like to invite you to just listen to me. You have to be courageous enough to go against the tide. Take two. Our new life after the end of printed news. This is the topic of my presentation. Distinguished guests, maybe I am going to disappoint you, but I will not stick to the topic allotted to me. No, printed news are not in their death throes. They are the stable diet that every citizen needs in order to form his or her own opinion, especially in a time where we are inundated with a hodgepodge potpourri of information and infotainment of any time of manipulation and deliberately spread rumors. It's very important that the newspaper remains a reliable news anchor for our citizens. The Luxembourg Tageblatt has not shied away from this public mandate. Information is still part and parcel of our newspaper, but we, the newspapers, organize the information chaos. We differentiate between things that are important, things that are less important. We check information. We prepare information according to professional rules. It's true, in the area of news, information circulates much faster than in the realm of printed newspapers. And why should the reader still be interested in printed news if he has it at the tips of his or her fingers via electronic media? Because we delve deeper into the questions, we shed light on aspects that cannot be treated on the fly because we inquire and investigate. So this is the mandate that our newsrooms are confronted with. And this is also our basic mandate, conveying news. About 3/4 of our newspaper are still constituted by news, which are being prepared in a professional fashion, and the remaining fourth is our reaction to changing reader habits and to new communication technologies that we, of course, in our capacity as daily newspapers use, be it with our web presence or be it with our apps. We have placed in front of our news book a supplement providing pages on special topics, a lot of background information analysis. These pages feature our best contributions, explanatory reportages, controversial debate, and topics, op-ed pieces. They have a light feel to them with a lot of visuals, excellent visual material, and this is how we made our daily newspaper a daily news and background magazine. An example of this can be found in the brochure pertaining to this event and also on the website of the European Newspaper Award. But, of course, you're also cordially invited to browse through our apps and our web presence. You also have to be courageous enough to go against the tide. Take two, economic crisis and structural change in the media industry have presented us with enormous challenges. Many of our colleagues over the past years have closed down newsrooms, have drastically curbed their budgets, have merged newsrooms, made savings by way of the joint use of cross-regional newsrooms. Our readiness to invest into the newsroom has remained at a constantly high level. Our newsroom is bigger than ever before. We hire the best talents, journalists that are sometimes meddlesome, sometimes unruly, journalists with a genuine passion for research, curious, with a genuine passion for analysis and commenting. These attitudes were necessary in order to breathe new life into a newsroom that was partly stuck in routine. We afford the luxury of a correction department, and also this contributes to the journalist quality of our newspaper in a day and age where spell and grammar checkers are installed on each and every computer. We use the way we correct our texts for developing it further. We also focus on the checking of facts and plausibility. So if we want to keep journalist precision at a high level, it is very important that we get the names and functions are right, that the figures are right, and that there is no mistaking. We afford the luxury of a highly creative graphic design department in direct contact with the editors-in-chief, and has been involved in the planning of the newspaper early on. We also afford ourselves the luxury of external consultants in the form of a graphic designer, for example, Hans-Peter Janisch, who has modernized our newspaper over the last decades, and he has provided us with invaluable support in every step on the way. He's also our watchdog when we're talking about layout and design, so he intervenes on a regular basis if some colleagues deviate from the original concept, and thus he keeps us at a constantly high quality level. We also afford the luxury to increase the price for our newspaper and to also charge a price for our web content. Many of you might think that this is a totally normal price adjustment, but you have to take this with a grain of salt. In the small country of Luxembourg, we have about 200,000 people who speak German, and there are 5 daily newspapers competing for shares, and they're faced with the competition of digital free media, but still we were able to survive this price increase without losing readers, because we produce a newspaper that lives up to the expectations of our readers. You also have to be courageous to go against the tide, take 4. In order to be able to produce this new newspaper, we had to challenge many things from the workflows in the managerial structures, as to this all the way to the setup of the newsrooms. So we are friends with many media companies all across Europe. We checked out many models. We learned from the successes and the failures of our colleagues. And if I can give you a piece of advice, it would be this: don't reinvent the wheel. Just check out the forms of organization, the processes, the workflows that have been devised by your colleagues, and translate it to the ambitions of your own newspaper. We had very clear ideas of how our newspaper should look like in the future, about the contents that we would like to have. And after we had completed the concept, it was all about implementation. For this, we needed countless training courses and meetings with the chiefs and editor. We had to come up with a new planning system. We had to do restructuring of the newsroom. This was indispensable. We had to create a permanent decision-making structure. This was something that was absolutely indispensable. Today, the cross-media newsroom, and I would like to underline the concept cross-media, is in one central newsroom, the hub of which is the central editor-in-chief department. This is where the heads of the section meet. Here is where decisions are made as to the contents of our premium book. Here is where we decide about contents and design and layout. And in this connection, I would like to thank my predecessor, Mr. Salt, who is today the representative of the Board of Administration, who intensively accompanied this process and who has acted as the eminence grise when it comes to the holding of motivational meeting. You have to be courageous enough to go against the tide. Now, on a very personal note, I told you how we changed in order to become a modern daily newspaper. And of course, we had to do some experiments in order to achieve this. We had to do several trial runs. We had to check how to place the editors-in-chief in the newsroom in order to boost our cooperation. We had to structure our conference system anew. We had to rethink our planning system. And first and foremost, we had to check our contents on a daily basis in order to strive for the very best on a daily basis. You might have fathomed this has disturbed many of our colleagues and has pushed them out of their comfort zones, and this has led to many cases of silent boycott and even uprising. But we were still able to design the newspaper that has now been awarded the award for the best European local newspaper. Also has to do with the fact that a handful of people was willing to go against a tide of ignorance, intellectual laziness, and partly even disagreements. And I would like to thank this very team. Some of you are present in this room, and maybe you have met some members of the team this evening. Our young art director, my co-editor-in-chief, Yannick Schumacher, Frank Ziegler, our head of pre-press, and of course Hans-Peter Janisch, our designer. And I'm very proud as a journalist, as an editor-in-chief and as a director general to have gone against the tide on so many occasions, and I will do so also in the future. Thank you very much for your kind attention.